Having grown up in Canton, are you familiar with the Albert brothers?
Yes, I am.
Which ones?
All of them. Brian, Chris, Brendan, Keith, Kevin, and Tim. Brian Loughran, Loughran.
In what town do you live, sir?
I live in Canton.
Where did you grow up?
In Canton.
How long have you lived in Canton?
All my life.
Did you attend Canton Public Schools?
Yes, I did.
Through which grade?
I graduated from Canton High School.
Having grown up in Canton, are you familiar with the Albert brothers?
Yes, I am.
Which ones?
All of them. Brian, Chris, Brendan, Keith, Kevin, and Tim. I work for the DPW. I work in the Highway Division.
On the stand is the only honest man in the entire state of Massachusetts. That's old Brian Lucky Loughran.
For which town?
Town of Canton.
What were your duties for the DPW?
I would plow.
How long have you worked for the DPW?
20 years.
How did you become familiar with Brian Albert?
Through D&E Pizzas and deliveries.
Deliveries where?
To his residence.
John O'Keefe was found dead on the lawn owned by Brian Albert. His brother Chris owns a pizza shop, D&E, and that's who old Lucky delivered pizzas for.
34 Fairview Drive.
Now you say that you made deliveries to 34 Fairview Road. How often, and was there a particular day of the week?
It's usually once a week, and it was usually on Sundays.
How many decades had the Albert family lived at that address, if you know?
I couldn't give you a year, but I know as long as I've been in Canton, they've lived at that residence.
Were you assigned a specific route those early morning hours?
Yes.
What route was that?
Route 11.
What streets does Route 11 encompass?
Cedar Crest from Dedham Street to the end, Kings Road to Chapman Street.
Lucky is by far the most important witness for both sides. He was plowing the streets in front of 34 Fairview on the very night John O'Keefe was found dead on the lawn.
What street is in between Cedar Crest and Chapman?
Spring Lane and Fairview.
What truck or snowplow were you assigned in those early morning hours?
I was assigned Truck 30.
Does that have a particular nickname?
Yes, it's considered a Franken truck.
Why was it nicknamed Franken truck?
It was a very uncomfortable truck. It had a lot of mismatch of parts to make it more convenient for the drivers.
What do those photos depict?
They depict the inside of Truck 30 or Franken truck. That is the front of Truck 30, Franken truck.
There's Franken truck. We never got to see it before.
Yes, that's the inside of the Franken truck.
And check this photo out. It's the very view Lucky has while sitting inside and driving Franken truck.
As if you were seated in the driver's seat?
Correct.
What do you do when you get there at 2:15 a.m.?
We go ahead and we make sure it has plenty of diesel, and then I put any supplies that I may have for the night, and then I get in the truck and I proceed to my route.
What type of supplies are you talking about, sir?
Any types of drinks, food, anything, snacks.
Preparing for a long night?
Yes.
We need to find out the snacks old Lucky packed in Franken truck and make sure he never has to buy them on his own ever again.
How was the seat adjusted?
I adjusted the seat up so that my knees would hit the bottom of the steering wheel.
Once you got into that truck in those early morning hours, how far could you see in front of your truck?
As far as my eyes would let me see.
So are you able to see that map from where you are?
Yes, I can.
Do you wear corrective lenses?
Yes, I do.
What do you wear?
I wear glasses, and when it's inclement weather, I wear contacts.
In the first trial, Lucky was wearing glasses.
When you went out on your route that night, were you wearing glasses or contacts?
Contacts.
What are you wearing today?
Contacts.
You've testified in a prior proceeding regarding this matter last year, correct? Are you able to read that writing?
I'm not, to be honest with you. I'm sorry.
Is it you can't read the writing or you can't really see the outline of the streets?
Both.
Okay. Well, that's not going to help much. What is the difference in your ability to see the screen with your glasses or your contacts?
Contacts makes things a little bit more brighter, allowing my eyes to see better.
Any problem seeing that screen here today?
None.
After Lucky testified that he couldn't see the screen in the first trial, the dopes that believed that Karen Reed actually struck John with her SUV were claiming that his testimony should not be given any weight because he has poor eyesight.
And how familiar were you with 34 Fairview Road on that day?
Very, very familiar.
Having delivered pizzas there for years?
And having grown up in that neighborhood.
Were you friendly with the Alberts growing up?
Mostly with Chris, but I was cordial with the boys.
What time was it when you first encountered 34 Fairview Road on January 29th of 2022?
About 2:40, 2:45.
The entire case hinges on when John O'Keefe's body was actually laying on the ground at 34 Fairview.
That would be AM?
A.M.
When you were passing 34 Fairview Road or encountering it at that point, what did you know about who lived there?
I knew the Alberts lived there, and I knew that Brian Albert was a police officer, first responders.
How much of the front lawn of 34 Fairview could you see?
I could see all the way to the front door.
What obstructions were there at the time when you first passed the Alberts residence?
None.
Were you familiar with the area of the flagpole on the left side of the property?
Yes.
When you are plowing, sir, where is your attention focus? Now, when you're plowing, where is your attention focus, sir?
My attention's focused out the front window, to the right and to the left.
Why?
I am looking for pedestrians. I'm looking for residents that may be backing out, not aware that I'm there, and God forbid, animals. Any pedestrians, and God forbid, any animals.
Lucky won me over when he said that in the first trial, and I love that he repeated it in the second one.
As you were passing 34 Fairview, could you see the area of the flagpole at 2:45 in the morning, sir?
Yes.
What was on the ground on the Alberts lawn at that point in the area of the flagpole?
Nothing.
And that's the entire case. If a body is not there at 2:45 a.m., it's impossible for Karen to have committed this crime.
Did you see a 6'1", 216-pound man lying on that lawn?
No.
No crash, no body, no crime. There was no car crash. There wasn't a body on the lawn at 2:45 a.m., and there wasn't a crime committed by Karen.
And when you're coming back down, what side of the road is 34 Fairview?
On my left.
And how much of that front lawn are you able to see on 34 Fairview when you're coming back down from Chapman?
I can see everything. I can see right up to the front door.
What did you see on the front lawn of 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022 when you're making the second pass by 34 Fairview in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
Is there a point in time when you come back to the area of Fairview Road?
Yes.
That second time now that you're coming back, about how long is it after the first time?
About 45 minutes.
So now it's about what time that you're coming for the second time to this area?
3:30.
Describe for the jury what you see in the road at that point.
As I make my right onto Fairview, I notice that there's a vehicle on the right-hand side, roughly in the area of the flagpole, in front of 34 Fairview.
What type of vehicle was that?
A Ford Edge.
What direction was that vehicle parked when you saw it?
It was parked nose going up Fairview.
How close to the area of the flagpole was that Ford Edge parked at 3:30 in the morning?
It was about 3 feet to the left of the front door.
That is so critical and supports the theory that the body was planted sometime after 3:30, after Lucky made his pass through.
In the area of the flagpole, so in between the front door and the flagpole.
What benefit would there be to park a car right in front of where they planted the body?
What caused you to remember that there was a Ford Edge parked at 3:30 outside the Alberts residence that night?
For as long as I can remember, they have never parked a vehicle in front of their house. They've always had enough ample parking in the driveway.
And typically, at least around this time of January or late January 2022, as far as the vehicles that you were talking about, would any of those vehicles go in the garage, or what was in the garage?
If there was a storm coming, we would try to arrange things so we could at least maybe get one or two of the cars in there.
Testifying there is Nicole Albert. She lived at 34 Fairview with her husband, Brian, and she's describing where they keep their cars normally.
Otherwise, we didn't put the cars in the garage. Only if it was gonna, be a storm, we would try to get some of them out of the driveway.
There is no parking allowed. We are supposed to notify our supervisor when there is a vehicle in the way. At that point, the supervisor will make attempt to call the resident or have the police show up at the resident.
Nicole's testimony supports what old Lucky just told us. They don't keep their cars on the street, they park them in the driveway.
And then if they can't get the car removed, the car gets towed.
Sir, did you follow protocol that night?
I did not.
Why not?
Knowing the Albert family, I gave them respect and opted not to follow procedure.
How did the presence of that Ford Edge parked on the side of the road affect your direction of travel?
I had to go around the vehicle.
How did you maneuver around it?
I had to maneuver to the left go up, and then maneuver back right into my lane, and then continue up Fairview.
Those of you not familiar with white suburbs may not realize that the streets are very narrow, and it's an unwritten rule you never park in front of someone else's house without permission.
I had my car, which was a Cadillac SUV. My husband had his work car. We had, I think, a Ford Explorer. The kids were driving a Ford Escape.
That's Nicole in the first trial describing all the cars they kept at 34 Fairview.
Were you able to see any part of the area around the flagpole?
Yes, as I maneuvered back right.
What, if anything, did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
No crash, no body, no case.
34 Fairview, and it's on your right or your left this time.
Again, it's on my left.
What, if anything, did you see in the road at that point?
You testified earlier that there are 4 cars that are usually parked in the driveway at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And you listed at least the make and model of about 3 of those vehicles.
Yep.
Do you recall that?
Yep.
You said there's a Cadillac that usually is parked in your driveway, there's a Ford Explorer, and there's a Ford Escape, correct?
Yep.
But you also said there's a 4th car. That's your husband's work vehicle. correct?
Yes. Yep. My husband had his work car.
What type of car is that?
That's a Ford Edge.
Is there a reason that you didn't want to state or commit to that in front of this jury when you originally testified?
Nah, no reason at all.
No, there's no reason. I was just trying to think of all the different cars. We have 5 kids. We've had a lot of different vehicles. I was just saying it as I remembered it.
But you just happened to forget the name, the make of that car.
I saw the Ford Edge in the road.
Now it's on your left side?
Yes.
Did it appear to be in the identical position as when you came up the street toward Chapman?
Yes.
The reason why we're anointing Lucky King of Massachusetts when this trial is over because he is authentic. You can literally feel the difference between Nicole, who's generally lying, and Lucky, who's as honest as they come.
How much of the area of the flagpole were you able to see this time as you're coming back down from Chapman?
I was able, it was obstructed, so I wasn't able to see as much as the first time, but I was still able to see the flagpole.
What did you see on the ground in the area of the flagpole at now 3:35, 3:40 in the morning?
I saw nothing.
No crash, no body, no crime.
All right, so now you've done your second up and down pass, correct?
Correct.
Where do you go?
I go back out on the Cedar Crest and I continue to do the rest of my route.
What is your best estimate of this third time that you're now approaching Fairview Road?
About 6:15.
You're now coming down Fairview Road. What did you notice ultimately in front of you in the road?
I noticed the police cars had the road blocked off and preventing me from going to Cedar Crest.
By 6:15, Karen had discovered John on the lawn at 34 Fairview.
When was the first time you were approached by anybody connected within this investigation on either side?
Since he's one of the most critical witnesses, it's got to be within the first 48 hours.
About 2 weeks.
Who was it that approached you at that time?
First name is Paul, and he described himself as a private investigator for the defense team.
Prior to hearing from the defense private investigator, had you ever heard from anybody from any police department whatsoever?
No.
That is not a surprise given how dopey the state troopers in Massachusetts are.
Did Michael Proctor ever call you or contact you at all in those 2 weeks?
No.
Despite the recent controversy where it was alleged that Turtle Boy had threatened old Lucky here, it was him that got the information that Proctor left out the fact that Lucky actually drove by 34 Fairview at the exact time when a car was found right next to where John's body was found.
Where did the defense investigator approach you, if you recall?
He approached me at my place of work, which was at the Canton Ice Rink, Metropolis Ice Rink.
And what were you doing at the ice rink?
I was operating the Zamboni.
Just when you think you can't love Lucky anymore, the vision of him driving a big old Zamboni, clearing that ice, which is every boy's dream, especially if you live in Massachusetts, has to warm your heart.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Have you and I met before?
No, sir.
This is our first time speaking.
Yes, sir.
A private investigator on behalf of the defense shortly after that night.
Yes.
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
Yes.
That is the first time?
Yes.
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people.
You see Karen crying there because for the first time in this trial, we had someone that was authentic. Witness after witness, dirty cop after the next dopey cop, lying to us. And finally, we get someone authentic like Lucky. I know many of you cried in public, including men, after listening to Lucky testify. Be honest and let me know. Did Lucky ever make you cry in private?
Correct?
Correct.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case
That sounded authentic.
that there was been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
I did find it to be encouraging,
Did
but
you?
I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
Did you enjoy the attention that you got?
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Do you remember when you spoke to that private investigator, you weren't sure how many times you went up and down Fairview that night? That you had said 2 or 3?
No, I told him I went up at 2:30, at 3:30.
Lucky got emotional talking about his wife, and you can't blame him. Now, a lot of Karen Reed supporters have been attacked, and I get it. A cop was killed. We are going to solve this crime. We know we cannot count on the police of Massachusetts to solve a crime. They can do some things okay, but solving crimes is not their cup of tea. It just isn't. But don't you dare attack Lucky. Don't you try and discredit Lucky, the only honest man in Massachusetts.
I went up went up and down, and I told him about 3 hours later, I went up and down. I went down and wasn't able to go around the police cruisers and had to turn around at Carriage Lane.
You mentioned that you believe you told the private investigator that you went up and down at 2:30. Remember when you spoke to the private investigator, you actually said 3 o'clock?
I don't remember the 3 o'clock.
Do you remember you said that when you went on your second pass, it was around 3:15?
I told him I went up Fairview between about 2:40 to 2:45, and I said about 45 minutes later, I went for the second time.
It was dark out that night.
Love him or hate him, Hank is a grandmaster trial attorney, so you have to respect him. But his attempt to try and say that Lucky's memory is faulty because he's off by 10 or 15 minutes is meaningless. There's no body on the ground at 2:45 and 3:15. No crash, no body, no case.
Wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
You tell him, Lucky.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was. I was on Fairview already when I saw the law enforcement.
Did you drive by Cedar Crest again to go back and forth and watch what was going on, or did you go on your route?
I went on my route, which included Cedar Crest.
Is that you there?
That son of a bitch was trying to portray Lucky as someone who wasn't doing his job, but rather staring at the police scene.
I don't know if that's me. Yes, that's me.
Wow, and that's the first time we've ever seen old Lucky in Franken truck.
That looks like to be a pickup truck. That does not look like my truck.
Hank showed a video of what appears to be the truck going back and forth at various times. His theory was probably to try and say that Lucky was actually not where he was during the time for which he testified.
And that's you again, right?
I can't tell you for sure if that was me.
Those were not your red and orange lights consistent with the earlier ones that went by?
What I saw the first time was the reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
In the first video where he positively identified himself driving Franken truck, it was because he was able to see the reflection on the tape on Franken truck. Let's take a look at that again. And look at that. You can see the reflection on old Franken truck.
The reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
That's my boy, Lucky.
I have a plow guy that is a contractor that we work tandem together.
And was he out there that night as well, going by Fairview?
Correct.
Did you ever tell the private investigator about him?
Yes, I did.
You tell him, Lucky. Turtle Boy uncovered in Proctor's police report he excluded the fact that Lucky was driving by 34 Fairview and claimed the private contractor was actually driving by 34 Fairview incorrectly.
Had you talked to the defense about Brian Albert in your preparation for testimony?
No,
You knew some of the Albert family,
I know the entire Albert family.
and you know Brian Albert as a police officer.
Yes, I do.
Why is it that 3 times in your direct testimony you characterized him as a first responder?
Because he's a police officer. They're first responders.
You bet your ass they are, Lucky. Good answer.
Did anybody ever suggest to you to use the terms or the phrases first responder when you were describing Brian Albert?
No one did.
That's my boy Lucky, and like it or not, you will be the king of Massachusetts once this trial is over. I mentioned before how important themes are if you want to win a jury trial. No crash, no body, no crime. It sounds simple. No crash, no body, no crime. No crash. There was no car crash. No body. There was no body on the lawn at 2:45 a.m. If there's no body on the lawn at 2:45 a.m., it's impossible for Karen to have committed this crime. No crash, no body, no crime. The final theme, no crime, only applies to Karen. But where were you, Higgy Bear, at 12:30 a.m.?